Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, The Locker Room, where we really try and promote the kids here in the Bayou region. I'm Stan Gravois. With me producing our show is Dustin Roby's show. Dustin, good to have you. Hope you had a terrific Thanksgiving.
My turkey was a huge hit this year.
Very good. Very good. Are you one of those guys? Was it a lot of family?
Yes. Had the whole family at my house.
So what happens going into Christmas? Like, are you already got the lights up kind of guy and all of this stuff?
My wife is a little more of a decorator than I am, and we put the Christmas tree up this weekend. So
very good. Very good. We hope all of you have a terrific Christmas season. As again, we look at our Bayou region and what all the high schools are doing. And I got to tell you, it's rolling. We're getting right into things related to the playoffs for football. Unfortunately, we only have one team from our local area left. That's E.D. White. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the program. But basketball really going strong right now. Thibodaux High School had their great Thanksgiving tournament. We'll talk a little bit about that also. And soccer hot and heavy right now. Again, if it's the first time you've ever joined our podcast, we are going to concentrate on our Bayou region high schools and those kids even younger than that in our area who are trying to do something positive by being involved in extracurricular sports and band and dance and cheer and everything that goes along with it. One promise we made, and Dustin, I'm going to sort of backtrack just a little bit.
Oh, no.
We said we're not talking about professional ball. We're not talking about college ball. But we'd be remiss somewhere in the show, and I think I'm going to do this with Casey Gisclair a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk a little bit about Tim Rebowe. Tim Rebowe was, which is real weird to say that, he was the head coach over at Nicholls State University, really turned that program around. And Tim has decided to retire. And we found that out yesterday. Not only did we find it out yesterday, Casey broke that story, so we'll talk to Casey a little bit about that. But Tim was such a vital part of the high school scene here in the Bayou region. A longtime coach at Destrehan High School. He's such a friend of all of the programs here in the Bayou region. So we want to delve into that just a little bit, and we'll do that with Casey. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then later in the show, we have Bobby Arceneaux. Bobby Arceneaux is one of the directors for Terrebonne Parish Recreation. A lot of you know him as a great ambassador to high school sports in the area. Some people forget that Bobby has a lot to do with recreation. So that's K through 12, all of the kids in our area. He's going to tell us a little bit about that. So we're very excited to have him. Fourth podcast we do, Dustin. We are, I don't want to say like getting the kinks out because we do some of the same things, repetitiously, but we think it's good for the community, trying to promote everybody in the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, listen, and we're going to keep doing that. Again, we drop, as the young kids say, every Monday. So every Monday, especially if you subscribe, you're going to get a notification of when our latest podcast comes out. So please go out and subscribe. I think you could do it right here by going down and click if you're on YouTube and subscribing. I don't know if you subscribe on podcasts.
On Spotify, yes.
I'm sorry, on Spotify.
Yes, they can also subscribe on Spotify. Also rate us, too. Yeah, if you rate us 5 stars, that's always a positive thing.
The nice thing is listen, we're just trying to promote the kids in the community. So any way we could do it. If we have 1,000 people who watch in or listen in, or we have 10 people who watch in and listen in, we're going to do it if we can promote the community. We are going to review the prior week and preview the upcoming week. And a lot of what we're going to do related to the high school sports as far as a preview goes is related to Casey Gisclair, who is our partner here at Terrebonne General. And of course, he with Bayou Sports, with the Sports Corner, with Play-by-Play, is at a lot of these games. So we love to get his insight. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in it. So happy to have with us again this week, Casey Gisclair. Casey adds so much to our little podcast where, again, we're just trying to shine a light on those kids in our area. I told Casey when we were off air, we're certainly going to do that with football, basketball, maybe a little bit of soccer. But we're also going to touch on Tim Rebowe because Casey actually broke a big story yesterday where Tim Rebowe has decided to retire. Tommy Rebecca, his longtime defensive coordinator, going to take over. We'll save that for last, Casey, because we want to talk about, obviously, the playoffs in high school football. And we'll start with CCA. CCA took on a very good Ouachita Christian team with a traditional sort of pedigree, their background. They're a blue blood, I guess you could say, of single A football. although they play in a AA district, which is still over my head. I still don't get it. Tell us well, first of all, hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I sure did. Hope the same for yourself and also everybody listening.
So you're at that game. It's 3-0 at halftime. Sort of give us what your interpretation of the flow was. I've been told by other people there were certain things that happened in that game that certainly changed the mojo. Your perception on Friday night.
The first half was really weird. It was 3-0, like you said, and both teams were probably going to the lockers wishing that they had more, quite frankly. CCA gets into the red zone, turns over the football, bad snap over the quarterback's head, turns into no points. Ouachita Christian has a situation where they do a Chicago Bears right before halftime. They complete a pass inbound, run out of time. And so they, at the 3-yard line, run out of time, don't get any points out of that drive. So both teams went into the lockers probably wishing that they had a little more. But I really think the turning point in the game, the second half, Ouachita Christian really started to control the lines of scrimmage, which put CCA behind the 8-ball. And then once behind the 8-ball, they didn't have their explosiveness to hit deep passes down the field because both Jaden and Jahari Carter left the game injured in the first half. And it just set up a perfect storm for CCA, unfortunately, to have their season end.
Is it a deal where Ouachita Christian, because I actually saw, without the huddles, their game against Catholic of Point Coupee last week, and it sort of played out the same way. They did get an early touchdown in that one, but Catholic of Point Coupee looked like they can compete with them, but Ouachita Christian just sort of grinds you down, and you mentioned the offensive and defensive line maybe taking over in the second half.
100%. They were so good up front. They tackled extremely well. And Stan, they have a quarterback, last name Vadrine. The kid just manages their offense so well. He doesn't make any mistakes. They run that zone read, stuff that everybody runs. He makes the right decision every time. When it's time to throw, he puts the ball in a safe place every time. They just, at the end of the day, they were poised, they were seasoned, and they just were not rattled at all by being on the road nor being in the quarterfinals. They played a really sound football game on Friday.
So they move on. They'll be in Donaldsonville, if I'm not mistaken, next week to take on Ascension Catholic. So great season. And a great article you wrote related to the standard where Jesse is trying to uphold over at CCA. And they will. A lot of kids coming back on that team. CCA is going to be around. This is going to be a normal thing for them. The other game, obviously, in our area was the battle of sort of the Titans related to who had good years this year. E.D. White against Vandebilt. They faced off 3 weeks ago. It was a 21-14 game, a good game. E.D. White had a 21-7 lead late. You didn't know how that played out because actually, quite honestly, Vandebilt went right down the field at the end of that game. Then this game happens, and I happen to be at it, and I know you've kept up with it. I know you've seen it since. Your thoughts on that game, and we'll compare notes sort of on that one. So your thoughts on the E.D. White Vandebilt round 3 game.
All right, so first things first, I was watching this one over at Nicholls State University. I brought the second iPad and was following along, and I was thinking, I'll be honest with you, Stan. Okay, so Vandebilt takes the opening kickoff for a touchdown. They lead 6-0. But then E.D. White dominates the rest of the first half. It's 17-6 at the half. I'll be honest, I was telling people upstairs, well, E.D. White might boat race these guys. Like, this might be a game where they win by 3-4 scores. But Vandebilt made some adjustments, made some corrections. Coach Wallace came on the radio Saturday morning and said, hey, we had to tweak a couple of things and give them credit. They got a couple of scores in the second half. They took the lead. They had a chance to maybe even get more than a 1-point lead. There was a very interesting play in the end zone in the fourth quarter. They missed a short field goal. So it was a situation where they had everything within, the palms of their hands. And at the end, E.D. White gets the football. And the great irony is everyone says when you mention E.D. White football and you say the word offense, everybody thinks option, option, option. Kyle Lasang told us Saturday morning, he said, we knew after we lost to University Lab, we were too one-dimensional on offense. We knew we had to put some passing game principles in for a situation just like this. Barbera leads the guys down the field, and they hit the big pass to Guidry in the back corner of the end zone. Crowd goes wild, and the Cardinals move on one step away from making it to the Dome for the second time in 4 years.
I'm glad you mentioned Ben Guidry, simply because he actually dropped a pass earlier in the game that could have been a touchdown for E.D. White. What wasn't a simple pass, but he did. And then he was one of the kids, and E.D. White had 2 fumbles there in the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter, and he put the ball on the ground. So to have what basically was a terrific catch. It's interesting. A lot of people will say it's a terrific throw by Barbera, and a lot of people are saying it's a terrific catch. It was both.
Both, yeah.
It was one of those deals where it was both. I will say, was fortunate enough to do that game on radio, and when we saw the play that you were talking about with Vandebilt, obviously those people having the benefit of seeing it on slow motion replay all weekend, yeah, it looks like what it looks like, right? That when it happened in real time, nobody sort of questioned it. It was so quick. And that's where, high school football is so interesting. And for you people who don't know, in a game like that, they're not going to use instant replay. I've actually had people over the weekend ask me, why didn't they go to the booth? And I'm like, it's high school football. But then I thought to myself, when they get to the dome, guess what? They're using instant replay, which sort of makes all of the officials in the state of Louisiana and all of the coaches at a disadvantage because it changes the way you play the game. So obviously they had that. But yes, a very well played football game. My heart goes out to anybody who had to lose that one. And unfortunately, it was Vandebilt Catholic. You like that situation where all of a sudden you get to the dome and they are using like instant replay and it changes things?
No, absolutely hate it. You play the entire season one way, then you get to the Superdome and you change the rules on the fly. I don't like that. It would be like if when the teams got to Lake Charles for basketball, they said, all right, well, there's going to be a 4-point shot in these games. No. You've done it one way all year long. Why change it whenever you get to the championship game?
Kyle actually made a great observation. He said 3 years ago when we played University in the state championship game over in Lafayette, he said it was implemented, right? Because they had the facilities to do it. And he said the problem is that the officials on the high school level don't know how to use it. So in anything that's close, they're going to the booth, and then the flow of the game totally gets disrupted. So it's more than just about trying to get the call right. It's a lot about just changing the whole flow of a football game, right?
100%. And no one wants, especially on the high school level, when it's a 48-minute game to begin with, no one wants a 3.5, 4-hour game. And you see a lot of those games in the dome, they do drag because anything that's close, hey, we have the technology to get it right. You have to understand and have a feel for when it's time, when it's not time. And without that experience, that feel just isn't there.
I agree 100%. E.D. White moving on. They will be at home again, taking on Leesville. They're our only Bayou region team left in this, unless you consider St. James being part of the Bayou. A lot of people consider them being part of the river, but listen, if they win a state championship, we'll take them. But that being said, Leesville has a running back, Xavier Ford. A lot of you who follow LSU football will know sort of the lineage and things. It blew my mind, Casey. This kid is running for about 260 yards a game. How do you do that? The flip side of that is if you're an E.D. White defender, I understand they're a little one-dimensional. So if you shut that down, and I'm sure E.D. White's going to be prepared for that. Your thoughts on maybe that upcoming matchup?
Kind of what you just said, piggybacking off of that, is that, yes, you have to stop a tremendous player, a young man who has done amazing things. But on the flip side to that, if you're successful in doing that, then what's else there for Leesville? Now, very few teams have had much success. He has run wild this season. He's been tremendous. But I'll say this, Vandebilt, obviously, E.D. White has experience stopping Vandebilt Catholic's Jalen Coleman. They have experience with Letcher's Trenton Cheney. They have experience with a great running back that Hanville, brought to the table this year. So they have had experience tackling those types of players before. But Leesville is very explosive, and it's going to be interesting, I think, on the flip side to that to see. And I always talk about this in playoff time. How does Leesville's defense in 1 week adjust to that very unique E.D. White offense? This could be a game stand where there's a lot of points scored.
Agree 100%. When you see Leesville's schedule and their final scores, it looks like they'll give up points. They just sort of outscore you. Their 2 losses this year, Sam Houston and Iowa. I'm going to call them Iowa, even though it's Iowa. And listen, Iowa is very good, too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Sam Houston good, too. but going to be a good football game. A lot of people had just assumed that whoever won out of Vandebilt and E.D. White was going to kind of coast into the dome because you don't have University. I would say hold your horses just a little bit. Let's let the game play out on Friday night. Again, Friday night, 7 o'clock. That game going to be at Harvey Pelche Stadium. Shifting gears just a little bit, basketball. Tony Clark throws a terrific tournament during the Thanksgiving holidays every year. He had it again. You with Bayou Sports was there for a lot of it. Your general thoughts as Tony actually picks up a couple of wins in that tournament.
All right, so let's start with Ellendon Memorial. They had a bad season last year by their standards. It was still a playoff season, but by their standards, it was not a great year. They're really good. They played 3 games, win 2 of the 3. Coach Cornell Scott and his guys are still really young, right? I mean, they played a bunch of 9th graders last year, so those guys are now 10th graders. He's got some 9th graders still yet on the varsity team, so he inherited a good 8th grade group. Ellender's really good. They fly all over the place, force turnovers on defense. They create on offense. They're going to be back to the Ellender standards. On the Bayou region, Thibodaux, as you mentioned a second ago, Coach Clark and his guys, they played some good basketball, man. For Coach Tony and his team, they have struggled the last 2 seasons to score. They would lose games, 44-40 or 38-35. Like, they had a hard time putting the ball in the basket. That was not really an issue for them at their home tournament. They are more explosive. They still play that old school Thibodaux defense, and I think that they're going to be much improved. The thing to pay attention to, I think, from this is going to be Central Lafourche. They lost so many seniors last season, and you could tell, like, they have some talent, but they're just kind of trying to figure out their roles. They went 0-3 on the week. There are some whispers that they might be able to get some kids back at the end of the semester. So what you're seeing now might not be a finished product, but all in all, some really good basketball. And I got to tell you, man, some of the teams that we saw that were not in the Bayou region, Denham Springs and Southside, I mean, that's some big heavyweight contenders, man. So it was a good 3 days. Tony and his guys do a wonderful job putting on that event. And it just kind of gives you like a first glimpse of what you might be expecting to see in our region on the basketball side.
Yeah, we want to warn that, obviously, it's still early. And some teams are just getting their football guys back in the flow. Some people don't even have their football guys. Obviously, E.D. White has not played yet. CCA has not played yet. It was nice to see Andrew Cayuette at HL pick up a couple of wins this week. Terrebonne's still struggling a little bit. Congratulations to Coach Polkley. He's got 2 wins under his belt. So things are sort of progressing in basketball. We switch gears to the girls' side of it, and obviously, Coach Jenkins had a pretty good week. I don't know what those out-of-state teams are like, but it has to be fun for your high school kids to have the opportunity to play a team from Mobile or to play a team from Gulfport or whatever the case may be. And she got, if I'm not mistaken, 2 wins. Yeah, and they're actually doing really well. As I look at my cheat sheet, I want to make sure that I get this right, and maybe you have it. 5-1 at this point. Yeah, that's impressive. Girls basketball, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, you're starting with the Lady Tarpons. They are playing well. They're 5-1. The big key to their season this year, like everybody new coming in, they got Nyla Lyons in the middle. They got Claire Epstock in the middle. They got size. The key was going to be how did their young guards hold up? Well, so far, so good. I mean, they have a win against HL Bourgeois. They got a win against East St. John over at the tournament. They beat a couple of out-of-state teams. So far, they're holding up just fine. Looking around the rest of the area, I really think that there's a two-headed monster of 2 teams that are probably clearly above the rest. That'd be Vandebilt and Thibodaux. And Vandebilt probably even at the highest, mark there. Coach Coleman and his ladies, they're so good. They play at such a high level. They have played a very tough schedule already this season, but they've gotten wins over like Lafayette Christian and programs of that caliber. So they're continuing to cruise. Thibodaux is the team that is interesting to me. Coach Ashley Barber and her ladies are playing very well. They made the second round of the playoffs last year, and Ashley came on the radio last week and was open. She said, "Hey, look, second round of the playoffs at Thibodaux, that's been considered a good year. But we've done it enough times that we don't consider that our goal anymore. They want to go beyond that. They want to go to the quarterfinals, maybe even the top 28. They've got a lot of talented players. They've got a lot of young ladies who could really, put the ball in the basket. So I'd be curious to see, how far they could go. They're off to a strong start to the season. And then, man, I keep talking about it. E.D. White is really good. Everybody just assumed they would take a step back. Caroline Adams is gone and, she's no longer with the team. No, they have started the season really strong. They're undefeated so far. They are really putting together. They're scoring in different ways. They got some post players. They got some guards. They play tremendous defense. E.D. White has been a team that I think has pleasantly surprised a lot of people. But for those who watched them over the summer, it's really no surprise because you could see that team still had a lot of really good players.
Listen, it's early, as we mentioned. And I say this totally tongue-in-cheek, related to basketball. If there's one person who's probably a Vandebilt Catholic fan, but he's not real upset that they lost the other night, might be Leon Veal. Because he's getting some of those kids back on the boy side of things. And when you talk about the girl side of things, Jaworski Coleman does have a loss with the girls at Vanderbilt. It's to Zachary, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of put things in perspective when you think about that, And you mentioned, listen, Nick Sinak is one of those guys. Had a long conversation with Brian Wallace, the football coach at Vanderbilt, and it intrigued me as an older coach when I used to coach high school football, how he looks at hidden yards, right? And he looks at a lot. I mean, a lot is based on field position. And it's always important. We know that. But on the high school level, to sort of bring that collegiate mentality of analytics and getting down to it, I think that's what Nick sort of brings to the girls at E.D. White. He loves the sport. That is his passion. It's the girls, basketball, that's his passion. So I agree with you on that. And again, we're going to see we might, and I'll ask your opinion, we might see this shift a little bit during December just because teams are sort of getting their structure right. But what do you consider that time where we sort of start knowing that team is what it is?
January 1. That's usually the date that I've put out there. I want to see how you navigate the month of December. A lot of big non-district games, a lot of big holiday tournaments before and after Christmas. I usually, the first of the year, we take a look at the standings. It's like, okay, well, this team is 10-3 or this team. That's usually when you could kind of gauge it. And then right after the start of the New Year's, when you start district play and you get into that Tuesday, Friday, routine. So usually for me, let's get to Christmas. Let's get about a week beyond that. And then we kind of have a really good idea of what we're looking at.
Shifting gears again, let's go to Tim Rebowe. Tim Rebowe, head coach at Nicholls, who sort of, I don't want to say defines the program, but he certainly changed the program to being a perennial winner instead of a just sort of also ran. Always had a great relationship with everybody in the Bayou region, was obviously head coach over at Destrehan High School. Decides to retire. Yesterday, you find that out. Was that you talking to JT, or how did that work that you sort of got that information?
To tell you the full story, I'm sitting there watching the Saints game like everybody else, just kind of chilling, enjoying my Sunday. Start getting some text messages from parents of players saying, hey, did you hear the news? Like Coach Rebowe retired. And I'm like, well, no, I did not hear that news. So, then the wheels start turning. And look, it wasn't a huge surprise because we had heard some whispers that this was a possibility a couple weeks ago. But then, you start going to basketball games and everything, and you're seeing Tim there, and you're thinking, okay, well, maybe this kind of calmed down. Maybe he's decided to coach another year. But you call Jonathan Terrell, and the first thing he said, he didn't even say hello, didn't even say how you're doing. He picked up the phone, he said, yep, it's true. So at that point, he knew what I was calling for, and he knew everything that was going on. So Coach Rebowe makes the decision to retire after 10 seasons with the Colonels. Tommy Rybacke will be the new head football coach. That was a little surprising that they didn't opt to do, like a search. But apparently, everybody's been around Coach Rybacke long enough. They're comfortable what he brings to the table to lead the program. And, it was a situation where, on one hand, there was a little sadness in the Nicholls community because, Coach Rebowe's done such an outstanding job. Jonathan Terrell's quote to me yesterday said, man, we're all in tears here. Like this is a bittersweet day. We're happy for Tim to be in retirement, but we're super sad he's not going to be the coach anymore. And then on the flip side, there's this little bit of enthusiasm and energy to see what Coach Rybacke could do. So, I think the one thing with Coach Rebowe is that, when we look back at the history books, I don't know, 50 years from now, people are going to see 47 and 46 record, and they're going to say, well, that guy is really not as good as everybody's saying. People got to understand he took over a program that was 0-12, and Stan, you know this, they were worse than 0-12. They were a team that in that 0-12 season, they had gotten blown out 40, 50 points every single time that they played. They were at the absolute rock bottom. Year 1, he wins 3 games. Year 2, he wins, is above 500 in the Southland Conference. Year 3, they're in the playoffs. Like, he turned that thing around so quickly. At the time, we all considered it mission impossible. Like, the idea that Nicholls would be winning conference championships didn't even seem feasible. A great 10-year run. Sorry to see him go, but super happy to know that, hey, he's apparently at peace with this and gets to go out on his own terms.
Yeah, and I certainly, we all wish him well. By the way, when we say retirement, you think it truly is retirement?
I think so. You look around the college football landscape, not to kind of steal his thunder a little bit, he's kind of making that decision that some of these other coaches in the 60s and the 70s have made, which is that it's not the same sport that we, grew up with. And that landscape is only for a certain type of personality, and it doesn't feel like Tim wants to be part of that going forward.
Agree. And listen, he's about my age, and we've been friends a long time. I certainly wish him the best. And he's always been in the state of Louisiana. So he's vested in our retirement system here in Louisiana, being at Destrehan, UL Monroe, UL Lafayette, and now Nicholls. So he deserves everything he gets. I know he's going to do well, and we certainly wish Tommy Rybecki the best of luck going forward with the Colonels. Hey, listen, thank you so much for everything. Your schedule this week, I know it's a day-by-day thing. Anything you know for sure you got going on?
Yeah. Look, tonight we'll be at Central Lafourche, Morgan City, boy-girl doubleheader. I got a bunch of Nicholls State this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. And surprisingly enough, like the Colonels men's team, or they like starting conference play this week. The Southland did some weird stuff with the schedule, so conference play starts this week. Friday night will be at E.D. White, of course. So, yeah, busy week, but looking forward to it. A bunch of really fun stuff on the.
And when Casey mentions ESPN related to Nicholls, he does a lot of their ESPN Plus stuff. So if you have ESPN Plus, go support the Colonels and watch Casey there. We always like to watch everything that comes through on Bayou Sports and all of the talk he does with Brian over there on play-by-play and on the Sports Corner on Saturday mornings. Casey, thanks for the time. Have a terrific week.
You bet, brother.
Always good to have Casey on. Such insight to what's going on and really good insight to the situation with Tim Rebowe. As I mentioned at the very top of the show, very fortunate to have with us my good friend, Mr. Big, Bobby Arceneaux. Bobby does so much for high school sports, but he's also an ambassador for Terrebonne Parish Recreation. He talks a little bit about what's going on with the recreation department, as we here at Terrebonne General are big advocates of what they do. Let's talk to Bobby for a bit. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am pleased to be joined by Bobby Arceneaux. Bobby is a director when it comes to girls sports in Terrebonne Parish, but he's much more than that. He takes care of a lot of the sports. Been doing it for a long time. What was your initial, I guess, kind of start related to recreation? I know you coached when you were younger. Did that lead into working in recreation?
Yeah, I think so, Stan. I actually, living in Oakshire growing up, in high school, I coached the kids in Oakshire in TPR. I was like a sophomore in high school. I was coaching the basketball, baseball. It was all we had back then, no football yet. And so actually, in January of 2025, will be my 50th year working for TPR.
I should mention a Hall of Famer with the Terrebonne Parish Recreation.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. And for you, those of you who don't know, Terrebonne Parish Recreation has a Hall of Fame where they honor those who have done extraordinary service to Terrebonne Parish. So congratulations on that. Obviously, it's been a little adversity when you consider COVID a couple of years ago. You consider Ida, even Francine as of late could put a dent in some things. Give us a status. Give us an update of how things are going.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's really bounced back. Ida was definitely a killer. I mean, we lost some gyms for Ida: Grand Collier, Montague, Little Collier, Berg, Oakshire, Lisa Park. You lose all those gyms with that storm. Now some are back now, naturally. Grand Collier not back. Lisa Park not back. Lisa Park should come back though in the next few weeks, so that's gonna be great. Little Collier gone. You know, that's not even here anymore. Montague's back, Berg's back, Old Shaw's back. I hate to lose Grand County. That's a good gym. It's one of the oldest gyms in the parish.
So can it be repaired or no?
Yeah, they're going to do it. You know, it's just going to take a long time. You know, boy, I hate that gym. Like I said, one of the oldest in the parish and one of the best. Montague too. Montague gym was an old gym, but well kept. And all the gyms are well kept, but these two gyms, as old as they were just so nice and well kept and so cared for. Yeah, hated to lose those, you know, but they're all coming back slowly, and trust me, we need them bad. And really on the east side with South Terrebonne and Ellendon losing their schools, they've been using our gyms too. So that just puts another occupant in the gyms. You know?
So even like Lisa Park coming back is huge. Every time a gym comes back, it's huge because it gives you another avenue to kind of get the kids on the courts and stuff. So that related to gyms, that's basketball, obviously, that's affected. That's volleyball, that's affected. Even though you guys probably don't have as much to do with it, but on a selective recreation district, you know, things like pickleball and other things that they may have in their gym, that affects all of them. What is, I guess, you talked about Little Caillou, which was always a very, you know, nice gym. I guess Smith Ridge is all they have now?
Yeah, Smith Ridge is down there, and we're using it, you know, because Smith Ridge is it's small gym. No parking, you know. When they built that gym way back when, probably didn't need all that parking, you know.
So, like, if you're in the Chauvin community, you go more to Montague maybe and do some things?
Yeah, just cut across, you know, and go to Montague. That's what our teams are based out of. That way we play in Montague. We use Smith Ridge for practice, and then we use the Montague gym naturally for volleyball, basketball.
Numbers good? You know, related to coming back from a storm, talk a little bit about the sports you offer and what the numbers are like, what you would like to see grow maybe, and what's doing pretty good. And maybe it's like, whoa, we can't take anymore.
You know, I tell you what, I put some numbers together just for the year. You know, what we've done, just to say in baseball, softball, our T-ball program had 24 teams with 450 kids playing.
Is T-ball co-ed where they play together? So that's a total.
Yeah, that's total. That's the boys and girls together, and then they'll split naturally. T-ball, of course, 5 and 6 year olds. You know, our baseball program, 68 teams in baseball with 725 kids.
Very good.
You know, big program. Softball, 41 teams, 500 girls playing. So, you know, those programs, you know. And everybody says, you know, well, you know, there's so many travel ball teams. And that's fine, and that's good. I'm glad we have that. But there's a place for kids who don't want to play that, you know, who are not going to play high school softball or baseball. They just want to play. Girls especially. Girls want to play with their friends, you know, and it weeds itself out with girls. You know, they'll play younger years, and then as they start picking a sport where they want to excel in, then it kind of weeds itself out, and they go to that sport.
And it's a good outdoor social gathering for the kids. You know, maybe they do decide that when they get to high school it's something they want to pursue, but they don't have to.
No,
it's kind of nice.
You know, our older girls league, you know, we have over 18-year-olds. None of those girls play high school based softball. You know, they're just out there with their friends playing
the opportunity.
You know, and they're happy with that. You know.
Well, we're entering the winter, so I assume your fall sports are sort of wrapping up. I guess that would be the footballs, and I saw something kind of neat. It's not the first year, but it's relatively new. Flag football goes along with tackle football.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I tell you, flag football just starting out with it. 33 teams in flag football, 225 players. So, and that's gonna grow. I mean, you know,
probably more than tackle football.
Oh, look, with the concussion protocols now, and everybody's worried about that, and they should be. That's flag football is going to be a growing sport for us, and I'm glad. You know, we should be playing flag in those lower age groups, and for our tackle program, you know, 23 teams with 600 kids playing.
Wow!
So it's still a big program, you know, and our cheerleaders who go along with that. There was only 8 cheerleader/dance teams, they call them, you know. They had almost 300 girls in that.
Are they associated with a team that's playing?
Right, yeah.
Tackle and flag, or just tackle?
Just tackle.
Just tackle.
And, you know, they...
that's been for a long time.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's been there forever, you know. And so some teams choose to have it, and our mama will be the sponsor and put them all together. And so, but that's good. I mean, it gives those girls something in high school. They want to be a cheerleader, or they want to be a on the drill squad or whatever they call them now. It gets them a little early into that.
Something that you obviously have a passion for, I'd say two. I don't want to limit it just to one girl sport, volleyball and softball. Volleyball had another successful season. I know you had those challenges of the gym. Everything go well with volleyball?
Yeah, volleyball went well. Our volleyball, 45 teams in girls volleyball, 415 girls playing. We added the 8-year-olds a few years ago and incorporated them with the 9-year-olds, 8 and 9s, 10 and 11s, 12 to 14, 15 to 17s. And that program stays pretty steady. It's always in the 40s. In fact, the COVID year, we had 53 teams.
Is that right?
And didn't play. Because right when we had the sign-ups, the registration, started practicing, we had to stop, So I was really excited about that.
Would you consider that, if you had to put a percentage on it, like being back, right? From COVID, even from being back, 80% back, 90%, 100% back?
I think 100. Yeah, 100. I think we're back.
Yeah, well, the numbers show that.
Yeah, the numbers show. Now, I do notice and I always kind of gauge it, the Grand Kayas, the Montagues, the Little Kayas, if the numbers are falling after Ida, is because people are moving out. That we're losing numbers in those communities. And now we still have some teams down there, but not as many as we used to. So I see that decline in those areas.
So it's basketball season. I know sign-ups have sort of happened and everything. Have they gotten on the court yet?
The boys, we actually going to stagger the starts this year. We're going to start the boys here in early December. Girls will start January 11th. We'll start practicing with the girls in the next few weeks, but the boys will start playing games. They've been practicing. So it kind of works out pretty good because it spreads our gym time out where we can get everybody practice time. And
you mentioned, I'm just thinking of this. You mentioned, Ellender High School. Even if Ellender and South Terrebonne, I know South Terrebonne got one gym back, but if they have to practice, say at Berg or at East Homa or wherever the case may be, is that a deal where y'all have to constantly work with those gyms to find scheduling time to get games in?
Oh, yeah.
And then I hate to ask this. This might be a question you're not going to like answering. Who takes precedent?
We kind of agree with each other. We know the schools are in a bind. We know they have to have set schedules. We're flexible. So we'll let the schools get them, put their schedules in. We'll fill in the blanks.
How to work around it.
And I've had some schools. I've had Ellender call me one time. They needed the gym for volleyball. I had volleyball at East Homa. They needed it because they had to reschedule a game. So I just moved my volleyball game. It's easier for us to move because you had a school involved. There's another school from out of town coming maybe or something. So it works out. So far, so good. It's not been a big problem.
What's on the horizon, the immediate horizon? Again, basketball about to get started. I can't imagine anybody could still sign up. Or do y'all have late sign-ups?
We have waiting lists now. We call it.
Okay.
So once the sign-ups are over, we'll have you can call. We have a waiting list. So let's say.
Do you call your specific recreation district?
No, it's all online.
All online.
All online.
Good. I'm glad we're talking about that.
Yeah, it's all online, or you can come into the recreation office downtown and sign up, and we make a waiting list. So let's say if the Montague boys basketball team, 11 and 12s, only has 6 guys, but 4 signed up late from that area, then we'll slot them over to Montague.
Very good.
All right, wherever you're from, we'll sign, but you go on the waiting list, and it works out good. Everybody gets put somewhere.
Good. For those, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, maybe a little bit, but not so much. Baseball's not that far away. Softball's not that far away. When does all of that get started, just in case anybody's interested?
Yeah, but probably we'll start, those seasons start in April, playing games. So we'll sign up, in the February in that area.
Yeah, February, March.
Yeah, get all that signed up. And that's our biggest sport. I mean, we have a lot of kids and teams and a lot of fields coming back now. So that's helping out. So we're looking, because we lost the Montague field. We had lost the Berg field for a little while. The Berg field is back. The Berg bridge is not back. So that causes a problem.
Domino effect, huh?
Yeah, to get to play in Berg for 6 o'clock is hard because you just can't get down there. So we usually use Berg on a Saturday, Or if I can get Berg teams, enough Berg teams to play, I'll leave them because they're easy to get to the Berg field.
Makes sense.
But to come from, to get down there at any time before 5 o'clock, 5 to 6, it's hard, But all the fields are pretty much back. The air base, what I call the adult softball complex.
Right.
We're going to be using that for girls softball probably.
Okay.
So that's going to be nice.
Yeah.
Of course, Bayou Country is coming along. The boys' field at Bayou Country should be pretty much ready to go. There's work in the works for the turf 'em. So, whenever that happens, I'm hoping it can happen on the off seasons where they can do all that. So
so it doesn't interfere with play.
yeah, but flag football plays out there.
Yeah,
They play there. So we have a lot going on out at Bayou Country. But, we use every Lafayette Woods, Broadmoor, fields everywhere to play on because we need them. The girls program has gotten so big that I use Broadmoor for one age group, for my 7H play there,
Right.
So, which relieves Bayou Country a little bit because Bayou Country without the boys fields being ready, the girls side of the complex, we shared it with the boys. So, limited to the days you could use it, So, which is okay. I had Broadmoor and I had MLK to play for girls plus Lafayette Woods.
Very good. Very good. Anything else before we let you go? Listen, we're going to do this periodically where we get sort of a status of how everything's going. Love to get you back in the spring. Anything anybody out there needs to know now related to maybe if they're sign-ups, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, pretty much. If you ever for sign-ups, we post stuff on Facebook and everything else, and but it's best just to call in. We have a sheet made with every sign-up, every date,
And it has numbers and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it before.
Yeah, and that way you kind of stay on top of it because Facebook is the means of information now. So, but everybody doesn't have Facebook, So,
But you are telling me that people could actually sign up online.
yeah,
So that would mean that they're going to get a call back as to where you report, and this is the
oh yeah. Once you've signed up and you have your team assignments and everything else, then we have a coaches meeting. At the coaches meeting, we go through everything: when the schedules are coming out, when the shirts are going to be issued, when we're going to start, when practice is going to start. And the good thing we went to for practices now, we have one lady in the TPR office now who handles all scheduling of practices. So she has a master calendar of fields and gyms and all, and that has worked out great.
It's one-stop shopping.
Yeah, it goes through her. So if Ellender has the East Homer gym, we know it.
Correct.
So we know we're not going on Monday night to East Homer. So she handles all of that, and that has been really a good move by the recreation department to do that because it's really eliminated double bookings. And even though some of the gyms, even though sometimes there's not recreation going on in there, it might be a function going on in the gym. So that helps that out, that we know that's going on in there and we don't book it. And that's been a big plus.
Well, very good. Very good. Appreciate you giving time to talk
sure.
about this a little bit.
Anytime.
Again, we'll do it periodically. Terrebonne Parish Recreation. You can go online if you want any further information to find out where your child, even adult, there are adult programs too. Go check it out. A lot of good things happening in our community. Thanks to Bobby for spending a little bit of time with us. Want to mention, as we get into Christmas, when we had all the basketball coaches in, we asked some very personal, specific questions to their thoughts, who some of their heroes were, who some of their favorite coaches were. So that's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be quick hitting where we talk to each of those coaches. I think we'll start a little bit of that next week, Dustin, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good. That'll be fun.
And it is really fun because some of those answers had us giggling when we were watching it. So we're going to start sharing that with you. And of course, we'll keep up with E.D. White and how E.D. White is doing. Hopefully a big win against Leesville that they have this upcoming week. And what's going on with basketball and soccer. We certainly don't want to neglect those kids. We hope you have a terrific week, and we hope you're here with us next week. Take care, everybody. We'll see you later.